Hello everyone and welcome to the Sicilian Paramour. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're not going to look at any middle game motifs or any opening. We are going to have a look at a beautiful study by a chess composer by the name from Siemkovic. This was the only pick I could find of him. So from Markovic Siemkovic was a Moldovan Soviet chess composer, and he produced a lot of studies, many of them being just absolute gems. However, the one we're going to look at today was the one I found most interesting. So this is the starting point of the study. It is white to move, and well, I'm not going to say white to move in what. You have to see what is the best continuation here. Whether white to move and win, white to move and draw. Let's see what you guys can come up with. So please pause the video and let's see if you can find something interesting. All right. Okay, I hope you've paused the video. If you need more time, you can do it. This is not one of those studies you can solve easily. All right, so let's dive right in. Okay, the first thing you should notice is that the black pawn is just going to march down the board and white has to do something to stop it. Otherwise, there will just be a new queen on the board, which I believe white cannot allow. So, barring a few of the nonsensical replies which do nothing to stop the promotion of the pawn or anything else, I have basically compiled a candidate of 3 moves over here. Now let's see, the first one is f takes g6. Now the simple idea is we're going to take back and we're going to promote 2. So if black tries h2, we can take, and if he promotes, then we will promote as well. Well, black can throw in this check here, so taking our pawn first, and after king takes, now he gets a queen. Unfortunately, this does not help him to win. After the only and the accurate move, knight f6, which prevents a check on d5, this position, believe it or not, is actually a positional draw, because after, say, something like queen c6, g6, king b6, this is so that the queen can check even along the back rank now. g7 and queen c4, this is a positional draw, because the white will not be able to escape any checks, and it is just going to be a draw. It's just going to be perpetual check everywhere. And if there is no perpetual check, then the pawn will not be able to promote because the king will probably be standing right in front of it. Sample line can be like king f8, check again, knight e8, check again, bishop f6, check, check. And you get the idea. There's no way that the pawn is promoting. And you can check this out with the engine, and it would show that this position is actually just a draw. However, after f takes g6, black doesn't have to push h2. It can actually go f takes g6, and now black is still threatening to promote, and now you have to do something about this. So you can play bishop f6 with the obvious idea that you have to check on e5 and then stop that promotion. So black can come here to stop it, but then a check again, and now black basically has 4 logical squares to go to, and let's see one of them by a turn. So if king c7 makes no difference, because after bishop f6 we are just repeating the position and the king has to go back to d6. Alright, so what else? Maybe you can go king e5. So after king e5, this is the main move, bishop d8. Now we're threatening a check from d8, and we're gonna get the control of the h2 square again. If the king moves, then just simply bishop to c7, and the only way to stop this is to go back to king d6, but after bishop e7 you're repeating the position. So what else can you do? Maybe you can try king e5, but this doesn't work, like I told you, because of this. So okay, maybe there's something else that you guys can try here. What about king d5? But king d5 actually fails, so knight f6, which is checking the king and also getting to land the knight on g4, which will protect the h2 square. So after something like king e5, knight g4, king f4, knight h2, king g3, almost, and now bishop d6 check. And now the bishop is protecting. This is probably a draw, but if anybody has the advantage, then it is white. But this might not be enough to win though. So now, after eliminating almost every reply, we can see that king c6 is the one that is actually winning for black, because the bishop is denied any use of this diagonal, the b8 to h2 diagonal, and now basically the pawn will promote. After something like knight f6, h2 is death. There's nothing you can do. Black gets a new queen, and these pieces will not be able to withstand. Plus, black also has a bishop and a pawn, just to complicate the matters for white. Or should I say worsen the matters. So we can understand that f takes g6 doesn't work. So maybe f6. Now, those of you who chose f6, the idea is pretty simple to understand. Of course, you want to build a fortress so that even with an extra queen, there will be nothing that black can do. So after f6, h2, the most obvious move, you can try to build a fortress in two ways. Either you can go bishop f8, planning to land the bishop on h6, and then the king will just drag itself to g8. However, this doesn't quite come about, because after queens, bishop h6, here you have this check, queen a8, and then the king can no longer go towards this merry journey. In fact, it's just mated in the next move. King e7, the only move, and queen d8, which is mate. So you cannot go back with the bishop. However, can you go back with the king? So this is actually one of the most resilient tries by white. However, this just doesn't work due to small tempi. After queen h1 queens, we are threatening the knight, so king g7, king d7, and now bishop f8. Now we can understand the idea that the knight is very well placed, protecting these two pawns, and now the only thing that remains is the bishop to come to h6, and this position will probably be a positional draw. However, after king e6, king g8, queen a8, this is the move, this is the key move. This doesn't allow the bishop to come to h6 because it pins the king to the bishop. And now black is going to do something very crazy. Look at this journey of the king. King g7, queen h1, king g8. Now we can understand why the king took this journey from c6 to d7 to e6 to f5 to g4. Now because of queen takes h7. And the knight was the only thing protecting the two pawns, and now it's gone. So after king takes g5. This is actually a winning position. However, if you put this in the engine will not agree with you. What it will agree on is that protecting the pawn with either king g7 or bishop g7, let's say king g7, is actually a mistake, simply because of king h4, bishop c5, g5, bishop f2, king h3, and now we can see basically we just want to push. So bishop d4, g4, e5, and g3. Now the idea is simple. After a lot of, white can of course throw in the spanners at some time, but it will have to give itself up for the pawn. And after, say, this is just a lost endgame, because the bishop is protecting our pawn. We are going to zigzag the king out of the protection of this pawn. We're going to go grab this pawn, and then our own pawn will march down the board. There's nothing white can do about this. Of course, this is lost. So protecting f6 with the king or the bishop will not do you good. However, the computer or your engine will be hell-bent on saying that after bishop b4, this is kind of like a positional draw as well. It's very close though, but it's not a positional draw. And in fact, my engine could not find a forced win. It was, of course, it was showing -3 or something, but the evaluation is just stable. But I consulted the Lomonosov 7-man table base, and I understood that black actually mates white in 38 moves, believe it or not. The accurate sequence being king h5, bishop f5, g5, bishop e1. And this, I'm just playing the most natural moves for white, but black is still going to get this. So after bishop g3, it's stopping the king. Bishop b3, bishop c2, this beautiful move. And now the star, bishop to g6. Any move by the white king will actually just result in the loss of the pawn. and any move by the bishop on either of these diagonals will actually allow the king to gain access to the squares. So basically it's going to be the same endgame where the bishop will have to give itself up, and we're going to zugzwang the king out of the protection of this pawn, and we're going to win. Alright, so this was the reason why the move 1f6 in this position doesn't win. So what does? And the answer here is, well, the most important thing that you must understand here is that the only way white can go about this is to build that fortress. So the best white can do is draw, not win. But that fortress that we saw was not coming about by the move f6 because of a lot of problems here. Because of the thing that the queen was able to check on the a8 and the king was not able to go, or maybe that bishop f8 was just a little too slow. The correct move here is bishop f6 exclamation mark, and it is basically the same thing that you want to check and do this. So we have seen the sequence before: king d6, bishop c7 check, e5, d8. I'm trying to do the same thing, d6, e7, trying to repeat the position, and we understand c6 is the only safe move for the king, stopping the bishop. But now f6, h2. Now what is the difference in this position and the position we saw after f6? Now there is a difference. The difference being that after the move h2 and bishop f8 in the previous line, the king was actually on c7 in the previous line, compared to this time the king being on c6. And the reason this works is that after queens, bishop h6, now we see that there is actually no check on this diagonal, so the king will find safe shelter because nobody can stop it from going to the square f8 and then to g7. Something like queen e4, f8 check, and well, this is the perfect fortress that we have. This was the version that white was looking for all along. This is a positional draw. There's nothing black can do about this. The knight is protecting these two pawns. The bishop is on a perfect square, so that the previous sacrifice of queen takes the knight doesn't work because the bishop is in the way. And I'll probably, let me turn on my engine. Let's see what it says. Alright, my engine is saying that this is -7 in the favor of white, in the favor of black, sorry. But this just cannot be true. It happens that the engines misassess positional draws, especially fortresses in the endgame. And you can see by just following engine moves, it's going nowhere. Okay, the bishop is protecting the knight. There's nothing you can do about this. And now, the main reason is that all the white pieces are on dark squares. This bishop is basically useless. It's colorblind. It cannot even see these pieces over here and the pawns. There's nothing we can do. A queen sacrifice like in the previous variation just doesn't work, and there's nothing that you can do. Also important is the fact that the king can never actually infiltrate the position. So it's basically a positional draw. And this was the beauty. This was the end game, which I've so wanted to show you guys. It's so amazing. Basically this reminds me of the Tag Heuer's quote, the motto. What was it? Don't crack under pressure. Yeah, it reminds me of that. It's just fantastic. Just being a queen up, and there's nothing that black can do here. Well, it kind of reminds me of another endgame. The endgame being the queen versus the two pieces. I'm not sure if you have seen it or not, but I'll show you. I'm not sure if you guys know this or not, but this position is actually a fortress. It's a draw. And there's no way black can actually win this. And the reason for that is the knight and the bishop are actually making this kind of a cage around the white king, and this cage actually ensures that the black king will never be able to infiltrate the position in any way, because every time it does so, it will be forced into this check. So it's just illegal for him to do that, and any sort of a queen check or something like that, the king can just move away. Sometimes you can even just check and check and check, and you can probably try to do a zugzwang kind of stuff. Like suppose you go here, but it actually makes no difference, because sometimes even the bishop can just drop back and the position will still remain the same. Queen a7 check, king b2. There's nothing basically that you can do about this, and now the bishop can simply come back. These three squares that the king has, basically he will just revolve around these, or if not, the bishop can just switch back and forth, and this will be a positional draw. So just like that, our study by Shymkovich proves the same, that it's not necessary that you should crack under pressure. Alright, so this was it for today, and I hope you guys really enjoyed it, and I loved it. I loved the study. And until next time, if you like, give it a thumbs up, and see you on the other side. Take care. Bye-bye.